Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to Fyn in Denmark once again, and we're going to revisit Indslev Bryggeri and have a taste of another one of the Ugly Duck Brewing Company beers. These of course were very kindly sent to me by Mike from the brewery there, so a big thank you to Mike for sending across these beers. But the one we have today is the Farmhouse Ale, which is 6.5%, and it should be quite nice. It was rated well into the 80s on Rate Beer. So we'll see how we get on with this one. These guys, I find the best way to describe the Ugly Duck beers is kind of like old school American craft beers. They like to use the quite well known and quite old school American hops, and they particularly shine when it comes to the IPAs and double IPAs and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how they come across with this different style. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery websites for both Indslev and for Ugly Duck. There's the links to my reviews from both ranges as well, of course. There's all the usual social media, and of course if you do want to see more beer reviews, please subscribe to the channel. And as always, to those of you in Denmark, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Ugly Duck, so as I've mentioned to you many a time, Ugly Duck Brewing Company is one of the brands of beer produced by Indslev Bryggeri, who are based in Nørre Aaby near Middelfart on the island of Fyn in Denmark. Of course, you've got Åland, which is the mainland, Sjælland, which is the island where Copenhagen is, and Fyn is right in the middle, and Nørre Aaby is in the northwestern part of Fyn. But the Indslev Bryggeri has roots that go back to 1897, but they reopened once again as a modern brewery in 2006, and since 2012 they've been brewing their more American style beers, which are the Ugly Duck Brewing Company beers. So the brewery is owned by Anders Rasmussen, and it was his great-grandfather Frederick that built the original brewery building back in 1897, which is where they actually brew today, and both of them grew up on the farm right next to the brewery. As I've said to you many times, it's quite common in Scandinavia that some of these craft breweries are farmhouse breweries. Aaby, of course, here in Sweden are one of the quite famous Scandinavian farmhouse breweries. Gård, of course, is the word for farm in Swedish, and I believe in Danish as well. But Indslev were actually the first modern brewery in Denmark that specialised in brewing wheat beer, and today they are actually the only ones who do this. But their desire to brew these more American style beers and to kind of get on the kind of craft beer wave, if you like, was what started them brewing the Ugly Duck beers. And these guys are a kind of separate sidearm of Indslev Bryggeri. But the two brewers at the brewery are Stefan Peter Stadler, who is German, a graduate of the Hofbräu School in Munich. He's worked for various companies in Germany and in Denmark. And there's also Torben Steenhold, who is Danish, and he's worked for a few different breweries in Denmark too. And the brewery building, the original brewery building from 1897, is where they brew, and they've got a Kasper Schultz brew kit in there from Bamberg. So they've got a very good brew kit, two very good brewers, and a lot of people behind the brewery who are very passionate about their beers. What I would say to you, if you want to try some of these beers, if you're into your wheat beers, try some of the hybrid wheat beers from the Indslev range. So my favourite ones were the Sortfade and the Fade IPA, which is like a wheat stout and a wheat IPA. Those were really nice. In the Ugly Duck range, the IPAs are very good. The Retro Double IPA is good. The Hop Devil, Miami Vice, all of those beers are pretty good. And some of the darker ones are particularly good as well. Imperial Vanilla Coffee Porter, and also the Putin Imperial Stout is a good beer as well. But pretty much, if you enjoy a style of beer, then just pick whatever one you enjoy from these guys, and I'm sure you will like it as well. But let's actually get on to the part of the video about this beer itself. So this one is 6.5%. It's listed on Rate Beer as a kind of a sour beer or a wild ale, but I think usually a farmhouse ale can be sort of similar to a saison, if you like. It says on the back here, "I wish I had a little house out in the country, Old MacDonald or someone else once sang. And on this farm there was a beer. The beer you're holding now, we started out by brewing a bone dry saison before letting it hibernate during the winter on 23 hectolitre wooden foodras with Brettanomyces. The Brett gives your taste buds just enough kick to remind you of how summer in the countryside was like, how the first kiss from your loved one was like, and so it's all coming back to you now. We sincerely hope you enjoy it. Brewed by Indslev Bryggeri, AS, product of Denmark." So yeah, it's quite nice. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. So there you can see, there's the Ugly Duck symbol, of course. You can see the guy on his tractor there. You can see the signature down there too. You can see plain bottle cap. That's the little bit on the back that I've just read for you. So it should be quite nice. Best before the 18th of May 2017. The hop in the malt bill on this one, it's hopped with Amarillo, one of my favourite American hops, incidentally. Nice orangey flavours from that. And it's got a malt base of pale ale and caramels with some raw wheat as well. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So yeah, big thank you once again to Mike for sending across these beers. Mike Anderson at Indslev Bryggeri. Tell you something, this beer really smells a bit like bubblegum or something like that when you open it up. That's quite unusual. We'll leave it at that for the moment and we can pour the rest in a little bit. But as you can see, you can really get a kind of unusual bubblegummy note off this, but when you go closer in, you start to smell the sharp kind of Brettanomyces notes. But as you can see, this beer has poured a really kind of bright yellow golden colour actually. There's a finger of a frothy, I would say slightly creamy coloured head rather than brilliant white. But yeah, it looks very nice. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see there is a degree of transparency, but it is quite opaque. There's some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and quite a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of the head. Usually these kind of Brettanomyces beers can be quite carbonated, but overall it looks really quite nice actually. It looks exactly as you would expect from a kind of farmhouse ale saison sort of thing. So in terms of the aroma, this is actually quite interesting. I've never quite smelled a farmhouse ale like this one. There's a really kind of unusual bready component to this. You can smell the Brettanomyces in this beer though. You can smell that kind of sharp, lemony sherbet character that you normally get from the Brettanomyces. There's a little bit of a kind of white winey character to it as well. It does smell a little bit like that. If you sugar it up a little bit, you can get a little bit of the orange for me from the Amarillo, but that's very, very subtle. There's a bit of floral aromaticity and kind of grassiness coming out of the beer too. Yeah, when you sugar it up, you will notice that you start to get some of the oily characteristics from the hop. Floral aromaticity, a little bit of orange I would say, but there's a kind of bready, wheaty malt in there. You can smell the raw wheat, and that's maybe the kind of unusual, almost bubblegummy character that I'm getting out of this beer. That's probably what it's coming from. There's a kind of, I'm thinking there's a little tiny bit of earthiness in this beer too. And there is a kind of caramelly, slightly biscuity sweetness to this as well. It's quite an interesting aroma. It's not like any kind of saison or farmhouse ale that I've come across before. So it's quite interesting in that regard, but it's definitely got some of the Brettanomyces character that you would expect. But yeah, really interesting smelling beer. So take a little bit of time with this one before you actually get stuck into it and just enjoy the aroma. I'll put the last little bit of it into the glass and then we'll get on with the tasting. But it looks nice. I mean, these guys of course are starting to experiment a little bit with sour beers, which is always quite nice. So we'll get stuck into this one now. So this one is the Farmhouse Ale from Ugly Duck Brewing Company over in Nørre, Aaby, Fyn, Denmark. Skål. That's quite unusual, that. So it's not such a normal blend of flavours, this one, in comparison with their other beers. This one seems a little bit more kind of quirky or something. But the first thing you'll notice about it is that it is quite refreshing. If you've seen my review of the Follow the White Rabbit, I thought that was unusual because it was supposed to have the Brettanomyces in it, but these guys do the Brettanomyces in such a way that it really comes out more as just citrusy rather than being really quite sharp. To me, if I tasted this blind, you know, I wouldn't expect that this was a kind of sour beer or wild ale. It really does come across more as some kind of saison sort of wit beer actually. So Rate Beer I think has got the style on this one wrong. But it's actually quite nice, you know. Sometimes saisons and farmhouse beers can be quite heavy in the body, but they've got this in such a way that it's nice and quite light and refreshing. So I can see what they're saying on the label, that they want it to be a kind of summer session beer. They've done that aspect of the beer quite well, and the flavours do blend together quite well. Yeah, for me this is a nice kind of quite drinkable beer. So in terms of the flavour of this one, you do have that kind of nice bready and yeasty character that just blankets the middle of the tongue. You can feel some of this kind of raw wheat that's on top of that. That's a really nice aspect to the flavour. There's almost a little bit of a kind of biscuity character for me coming on top, just a little bit of graininess, some sweet caramel to it as well. And as you go out towards the edges of the palate, the hoppy side of the beer is interesting too, because you've got the grassiness. There's a bit of floral character as you come towards the front of the palate. It's a little touch earthy at the back side of the palate, but then as you come further forward it's more floral, and there is some herbal character to it as well, so it's an interesting kind of blend of things going on. Yeah, just behind the front of the tongue there you can pick up a little bit of an orangey citrus. That's the typical thing from the Amarillo hop. It has that nice, slightly oily, juicy orange character there, but that's almost it almost takes a little bit of a back seat. You can detect it if you know what to look for, and Amarillo, like I say, is one of my favourite hops, so I know it quite well. But on top of that, the citrus changes tastes a little bit different because of the Brett character that's in there. But that's nice. I mean, I like the feel of this beer, I have to admit that. I like how sessionable it is, and the flavours for me blend together really well. It's this one, you know, it isn't too punchy in any aspect. It's not really sweet and malty, it's not big and hoppy and bitter, and it's not really tart and sour. It's just got a nice blend of everything going on here, and that's what I think the Ugly Duck do quite well. They're quite good at producing blended beers. You'll see that if you try their double IPA and you try the Hot Devil and things like that, they are very, very well blended. These guys aren't a very in-your-face brewery, but they blend the flavours really well, and that's their strong point in my opinion. But that's nice. That would be a nice summer session beer. I need to see if I can get a few more of these and actually try that out. But yeah, it's a nice beer that the thing that's interesting about this, I was expecting it to be a lot more sour than it is, but the bready character is quite interesting. That slightly floral, herbal aspect to the Saison too is interesting. For me, it just blends together really nicely. In terms of the mouthfeel, this one, I would say this is kind of light to mid-bodied, maybe just leaning more towards the mid-bodied side of thing. The carbonation on it does have a little bit of a prickle, and that suits it for being a summer beer actually. This is quite a refreshing Saison, and usually, like I was saying, Saisons and Farmhouse beers are a little bit more sort of heavy in things, but they've got they've got all the flavour in there, but they've managed to make the mouthfeel so that it's nice and sessionable. There's a bit of dryness from the hops, which is quite nice, and then that just smooths out, it just mellows out a little bit. There is a teeny tiny little bit of a tart character, but that really is very, very minimal. It's more an oily hoppiness that you're getting from this, and there's a little bit of a malty sweetness as well. The wheat character for me is the really interesting aspect to the malt base, because you can feel it in the middle of the tongue, and there is just a little bit of dryness in there. So overall, it's a very, very nice beer actually. This one wasn't rated as highly as some of the other ones on Rate Beer, but I actually have to admit, I enjoyed this. This is one of the better sessionable beers, I would say, from Ugly Duck Brewing Company. And of course, beer is always subjective, so you guys might disagree with that assessment of it. But for me, this is a nice kind of summer sessionable beer. You can taste a little bit. They were saying they aged it on wood, and in the middle of the palate, when you move more into the aftertaste, you can get a little bit of that woody flavour mixing with the wheat. So there is a little bit of complexity to this beer, and I would say, you know, it is pretty damn good, so I would definitely drink this one again. So another very, very solid beer from Ugly Duck Brewing Company. If you're assessing it in terms of the range, you know, they do have some beers. All their beers are good. There are some that are slightly above the others. For me, this one kind of fits into the middle of the best beers and the good beers, if you like. This one for me is a very nice session beer. If I had to, I don't drink that beer all that much kind of outside of my reviews, but for me this would be a very good kind of summer session beer. This would be a great seasonal for them actually, but for me it's a very, very solid beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. So yeah, make sure you go and check out the Farmhouse Ale from Ugly Duck Brewing Company, part of Indslev Bryggeri. Thank you once again to the guys at the brewery for sending me across this beer. It's been really cool to review these ones for you. There are 2 more Ugly Duck reviews coming up just before I go to Japan. You'll see a lot of Japanese reviews coming up, of course. But thank you once again for watching my beer reviews. As always, if you have tried this beer yourself, let me know your own thoughts in the comment section below. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Go and check out my social media things, but most importantly, go and check out some of the Ugly Duck and Indslev Bryggeri beers. They produce some pretty awesome stuff actually, so do check it out. I would recommend these kind of wheat hybrid beers that you can get in the Indslev range. Let me know your favourite beers from these guys too, I'd be interested to know that. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll see you soon with reviews of the Obama and the Putin. Cheers.